The Old Armchair. Alex leaned back in the old armchair, closed his eyes, and fell into a field of buttercups. He could see the pure, shiny faces of the flowers so clearly that he reached out his hands to gather a bunch of them. Alex had always loved the countryside. When he was much younger, he used to run through fields on the way home from school. Most days at school were pretty bad one way or another, and running through the fields helped him to calm down. One day he'd stopped to pick some flowers for his mum, but when 12-year-old Alex presented the buttercups proudly to his mother, she hadn't wanted them. She'd been too busy storing up her anger to fling at him when he opened the kitchen door. "What do you mean you couldn't help it?" she screamed. "You couldn't help tearing up all your school books and chucking them on the floor? You couldn't help pushing the chairs over and frightening all the other kids to death? What is wrong with you?" Alex had wondered this himself. What was wrong with him? Sometimes his head felt so messed up he would cover his face with his arms and lash out at anyone who came near. He couldn't seem to take a joke. If it felt like someone was laughing at him, a red rage rose up in him out of nowhere. And when he was angry, he could be vicious. He'd even hit his mum, sometimes. No one liked an angry, violent child. He didn't like himself. He hadn't worked out then that he had a good reason to be angry. He could see the cheerful yellow flowers now in a limp heap on the kitchen floor. "Oi, Alex, stop dreaming and help me shift this." Liam, Alex's flatmate, was puffing and panting, trying to move the table, the only other piece of furniture they had. "You can't get your own way with the chair and then just sit in it." "Sorry, Liam, I got carried away there, mate. I've wanted a chair like this for years. It reminds me of the one at home, before, well, you know." Liam understood. Home, for both of them, had been complicated. Liam felt the same about his grandma's place. Little things like the smell of lavender or a certain shade of pink could take him right back to when life seemed simpler. Alex and Liam manoeuvred the old armchair so that a glimpse of the bay was still visible on a clear day. "Well, that's you sorted. Where am I supposed to sit?" asked Liam pointedly. But then he grinned. "It's okay. I know it means a lot to you. If a comfortable old armchair is what you need, then it is what you shall have." Alex grinned back. Sometimes he couldn't believe his luck. He thought back to the dark days when he felt so low he could barely see why he should even exist. And now here he was setting up his first proper home. Liam had wanted a shiny leather-type sofa, but he gave in when he saw how passionately Alex wanted the faded green chair with the worn materials stretched across its wide arms. They argued sometimes, but mostly they understood each other. "Like an old married couple," people sometimes said. There was no way Alex was going to marry Liam, mind. He loved him to bits, but he decided a while ago that it would be a girl he'd settle down with in the end. Preferably a girl called Jess. Thinking about Jess, Alex suddenly said, "Hey, Liam, I'm going out." 5 minutes later, Alex was pulling on his deck shoes with palm trees on them, matching his bright patterned shirt and pale blue shorts. Liam had to admit it. Alex looked great. Liam wished he could get away with such an outrageous look, especially when it wasn't even summer. Alex's startling blue eyes and bright ginger hair started off the colour scheme on their own. and Alex just added clothes to suit. He stuck his sunglasses on the top of his head and made for the door. Alex felt so much better in disguise. He loved being the cool, confident guy that a set of clothes turned him into. That was how he'd got the job as a waiter. It was also how he'd met Jess. Gianni, the manager of the Seaview Hotel, had seen Alex sitting on the wall outside, brown legs stretched out in front of him, orange hair complementing his sunset-coloured shirt. Two girls were coming towards him, one pushing the other in a wheelchair along the prom, chatting and giggling together. But when they reached the little garden next to the hotel, it was impossible to get the wheelchair through the gateway. The wheels were stuck fast. The two girls were still laughing, but they realized the only way was to try and get Jess out of the wheelchair. Before he'd even thought about it, Alex was there, asking Jess if she would mind awfully if he simply lifted her out of the chair. Gianni could see how thoughtful and respectful Alex was as he helped them to unwedge the chair. Then and there, Gianni had gone out and invited the three of them to have a drink on the house. He felt bad that his garden wasn't wheelchair-friendly. He'd definitely do something about that. Alex offered to help widen the gateway, and by the end of the week, Alex was helping out in the bar, and before long, Alex had a different disguise, the black and white suit of a waiter. Alex remembered Jess's face as he leaned over to lift her. She looked terrified. He thought he understood how she might feel. A huge bloke offering to help, and she couldn't say no. She had no choice. She was vulnerable. He'd felt like that himself before. If someone wants to take advantage and you don't feel like you have a choice, there's no way to escape. Now Alex strode confidently along, the sea just beginning to glisten as the sun slid out between fast-moving grey clouds. Might Jess and Phoebe be out again today? No sign of them. But then, who should appear, zigzagging across the prom towards him, but his sister, Alison. "Howdy doody, bro! You'll never guess what!" Before she even got to him, she poked out her tongue to show off her latest piercing. Right through her tongue. Confirmation she really was mad. And look! She pulled up her sleeve to reveal a tiny butterfly just above her wrist. "Oh, that's nice," said Alex in surprise. "That's quite subtle." Alison continued to roll up her sleeve. Another butterfly, and another. A whole swarm of butterflies, getting bigger and bigger as they reached her shoulder. "What do you think?" she said excitedly. Alex didn't know what to say. He'd always felt a bit overwhelmed by Alison and a bit in awe of her. How could they be brother and sister, he often wondered. She was so lively and dynamic, and people loved her wacky ways. Alex was thoughtful and didn't like to upset anyone. That's not to say he didn't upset anyone. He thought back to his mum and started to feel that horrible, angry, sad, mad, tearful feeling that Jamie has tried so hard to help him with. It was Jamie, one of the workers at the children's home, who he'd finally opened up to. Alex had thought the boy at school had been a true friend to him, so when he started to humiliate him and hurt him, Alex didn't know what to do. He felt he had no choice. That was when the anger started. His best friend was hurting him. But he couldn't tell anyone, and he didn't have any other friends. Jamie helped him to see that when you feel abused, used, despised by someone who is supposed to be your friend, you feel you can't trust anyone. You can't escape. And no escape means it keeps happening. and then it seems like you are agreeing when you're not. That was how he knew how it must feel to be Jess, reliant on people to help you, not being able to just get up and go whenever or wherever you wanted, having to let a complete stranger take hold of you and pick you up. He'd been as gentle as he could, but he still felt like he was taking advantage. What choice did Jess have? Jess. Beautiful Jess. Alex thought about her giggling with Phoebe, and the shy looks she'd gave him as they sipped their free drinks outside the hotel that day. Then he realized that his sister was still chattering. So then I said, well, you would, wouldn't you, because green is the colour of envy. And he said, like, well, purple is the colour of your arm. And I thought, like, that's just rude. And so he got on the bus, and I don't know whether I should ring him now. A voice in my head says I shouldn't, but I think I might. What do you think, Alex? Alex smiled at her. There was no chance of Alison bottling things up. Alice had kept the stopper on his bottle for years. It had got worse and worse at home with his family, screaming and hitting and shouting and slamming, until it was decided he would be better off in a special unit. It was hard at first. Then, long walks with Jamie and the dogs through meadows and over hills worked like a magic potion. At last Alex had begun to talk, sitting by the fireside in the green armchair, and the dogs lying at their feet. Alex told Jamie all about the boy who was supposed to be his friend. Now Alex realized that it was time to speak out again, this time to Alison. He explained, haltingly but in earnest, how he felt about Jess. Alison listened with her special listening expression on her face, and then she set to work. It turned out that Phoebe used to go to the same school, and Alison soon tracked her down. She persuaded Phoebe to take Jess for a walk down the prom the following Sunday afternoon, and ordered Alex to make sure he was looking his best. It wasn't going to be easy, and he was going to have to work quickly, but after a swift change from black and white suit to colourful beach clothes in between his lunchtime and evening shifts, Alex leaned against the whitewashed wall of the hotel gardens and hoped he looked more relaxed than he felt. Jess couldn't believe what she was seeing. Standing in front of her was Alex, his wide blue eyes looking directly into hers, with the biggest and freshest bunch of buttercups she'd ever seen. Buttercups seemed to be pouring out of his pockets and tumbling down his legs as he held the bundle out to her. His nose and cheeks were covered in a yellow, shimmering powder, and his orange hair looked more spectacular than ever. Jess was speechless, but finally Alex wasn't. He told Jess that he wanted to be there if ever she needed anyone, if ever she wanted anything. But, you know, if you don't want me there, if ever you want me to go away, you just need to say, and I will go. I won't ever make you feel like you have no choice. Jess's lap was full of flowers. Leaving Phoebe standing, she pushed down on one wheel with all the might in her good arm. Alex knelt beside her, and Jess touched his face, holding out her yellow-coated fingers to show him. They both began to giggle.